Okay, the next time you want to let out a huge sneeze, go for it, even if it feels a bit rude. Otherwise, you might end up with a hole in your neck if you hold it in. No joke! This really happened to someone in the UK. Let's dive in. The story goes like this. A man in his 30s came to the hospital because his neck really hurt and was extremely swollen. He could barely move it. The discomfort started suddenly after he tried to stop a sneeze by holding his nose and keeping his mouth shut at the same time. He was driving at that time and had hay fever. Even though he could still breathe, eat, and talk just fine, the doctors noticed a weird little crackling sound coming from his neck when they touched it. It sounded kind of like a bubble wrap. That was strange, so they took an X-ray to check what was going on. What they found shocked and terrified everyone. The X-ray showed that there was air stuck under the skin in his neck. It's something called surgical emphysema. It happens when air escapes and gets trapped deep under the skin. Next, they did a CT scan, which is like a super detailed picture of the inside of your body. That scan showed a teeny tiny hole in his windpipe, the tube you use to breathe. The hole was between two bones in his neck. That's where the air was leaking out. The doctors realized that the hole had popped open because the man had built up too much pressure in his throat when he had stopped that powerful sneeze. Luckily, he didn't need surgery. The doctors kept him in the hospital for 2 days just to be safe. They watched his breathing and other important stuff, and they didn't let him eat anything for the first day to avoid making things worse. After that, he went home with some medicine to help with the pain and his hay fever. The doctors also told him to take it easy, no heavy lifting or exercise, for 2 weeks so that his throat could heal. 5 weeks later, the man went back for a checkup, and guess what? A new scan showed that the hole in his windpipe had completely healed up. Whew! He was totally fine again. But this case became a big deal since such injuries are rare. Doctors have seen pretty many people with holes in their windpipes before, but they were usually caused by things like car accidents or problems during surgery, like getting your thyroid removed or having a breathing tube put in. But in this guy's case, it happened just because he held in a sneeze. That had never been reported before. Now, doctors say that when you block your mouth and nose during a sneeze, the pressure in your throat can get very, very strong, like 20 times more than what happens during a normal sneeze. That's a lot of pressure for your poor windpipe to handle. So here's a simple warning. Don't ever try to stop a sneeze. Just let it out, loud and proud. Better to sneeze than end up with a hole in your throat. Trying to stop a sneeze by pinching your nose and keeping your mouth shut can also cause other serious problems. Here are a few things that can happen when you hold in a sneeze. You might pop your eardrum. The thing is, when you hold in a sneeze, all that pressure builds up and needs to go somewhere. Sometimes it gets pushed into your ears through a small tube called the eustachian tube. If the pressure gets too strong, it can cause a small hole in your eardrum, which is called a ruptured eardrum. This might lead to hearing problems, repeated ear infections, dizziness, and even an infection in the bone behind your ear in rare cases. You might also get an ear infection. Sneezing helps your body get rid of dust, germs, and other irritating stuff in your nose. If you stop a sneeze, that junk can go in the wrong direction, back into your middle ear. That can lead to an infection, which can often cause pain or an unpleasant full or heavy feeling in your ear. If left untreated, the eardrum might even burst. Another nasty consequence of holding in a sneeze, the pressure can sometimes be strong enough to burst tiny blood vessels in your eyes or nose. If it happens in your eye, it might look like a red spot, which is called a conjunctival hemorrhage. It usually looks worse than it feels and goes away on its own. In your nose, the extra pressure can lead to a nosebleed. If you forcefully stop yourself from sneezing, air can get trapped under your skin. This rare condition is called subcutaneous emphysema, and that's exactly what happened to the guy at the beginning of the video. It happens when air escapes from inside your body and gets trapped under your skin. You might feel soft, puffy spots that make a crackling sound when you press them. This can happen after hard coughing, an injury, or from a held-in sneeze. especially if there's a small crack in one of your facial bones. Ew, this one's yucky. Now, a much more serious and dangerous consequence can be a burst brain aneurysm. This one's really rare, but very serious. A brain aneurysm is a weak spot in a blood vessel in your brain. If you hold in a strong sneeze, all that pressure can push into places it shouldn't, like your head. Doctors say that in a very unlucky case, this pressure could make an aneurysm pop. That can cause bleeding in the brain, which needs immediate medical help. Even though it's super rare, one report did mention a 55-year-old man who had bleeding in his brain right after a really strong sneeze. And finally, holding in a sneeze might cause a bone to break. This is also super rare, but a held-in sneeze can sometimes break tiny bones inside your body. There have been stories about people cracking a bone in their voice box or even inside their ear after sneezing too hard and not letting it out. Someone might even crack a rib if the pressure gets pushed into their chest instead of out through the sneeze. Now, sadly, holding in sneezes isn't the only habit that seems totally fine, but only at first sight. Cleaning your grill with a metal bristle brush is another one. You see, those little metal bristles can fall off and stick to the grill. Then they can end up in your food and your body if you swallow one. That tiny wire can poke holes in your throat, stomach, or intestines. Yes, it is as bad as it sounds. People have landed in the hospital or worse because of it. So use a plastic or nylon brush instead. Riding in the car with your feet on the dashboard might feel cool or comfy, but it's a terrible idea. If the car stops suddenly or crashes, your knees could slam right into your face. That can break bones and mess up your jaw. Not fun. The safe move: feet down, back straight, seatbelt on. Lifting heavy stuff too fast or weirdly is dangerous too. It can really mess up your back, and then you're looking at long-term pain and trouble walking, working out, or just standing comfortably. So lift smart, bend your knees, go slow, and know your limits. Hanging wet towels on hooks or scrunching up the shower curtain isn't the best idea either. I know, after a shower, it's easy just to toss the towel on a hook and bunch up the curtain. But when they stay damp and folded like that, mold and bacteria are bound to throw a party. Instead, spread your towel out flat and pull the curtain all the way across so it can dry properly. Another thing? Popcorn. The perfect snack for the movies, right? It's kind of a tradition. Grab some popcorn, a soda, and settle in for the show. Unfortunately, that tasty habit isn't so great for your health. Dentists say popcorn can actually be rough on your teeth. Tiny bits get stuck between them, and even brushing doesn't always get them all out. Plus, the popcorn in movie theaters is loaded with fat, so not exactly a healthy snack. Well, that sure takes all the fun out of it, eh? That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.